All right. I guess the shoe has fallen. Scott Frost has been let go as the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. 3 games into the season, week 2 just finished. They lost to Sunbelt Georgia Southern, and Trev Alberts, Nebraska's AD, let him go, and it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I mean, I think most people after the Northwestern loss thought that it was only a matter of time. I think most people thought they was either going to finish out the season or wait till after that Indiana game, which reduced the buyout. But when you think about it, Trev Alberts, as he said, they were ready to move on. And so now that Frost is gone and been fired, the focus then turns to who are they going to hire. And there was talk that maybe Scott Frost would get fired last year. He ended up not. And I think there's a lot of choices out there. And I'm not one of those people that's like, well, who are you going to bring in? Who's going to want to come to Nebraska? A lot of people are going to want to come to Nebraska. They're in the Big Ten. They've got a national brand, passionate fan base, money, Big Ten money. Facilities are improving. There's a lot to like and a lot to work with. I think the one big negative here is there's not it's not in a fertile recruiting ground, but it's not like you can't get talent to Lincoln. And so I think they're going to have options. I don't think this is going to be, we've got to settle for option 15. They're going to have options. And I think they have there's some realistic. Now, obviously, I'll be like, let's go get Nick Saban. Let's go get this. That's not going to happen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my 5 realistic candidates. I'm going to throw in a 6 of a guy that wouldn't surprise me and I'd be okay with as well. But I think if the Cornhuskers get one of these 5 guys, I think it's a home run. Now, first off, like I said, Kyle Whittingham is a guy that I would like. He's not on this list. I don't think he's leaving Utah. There's a lot of guys like Kyle Whittingham that would be awesome, great gets. But like Whittingham's from Utah. He's not going to leave Utah to come to Nebraska. I mean, if he does, I'd be ecstatic. Lincoln Riley, like I said, a lot of those guys, Lane Kiffin, they're great hires, but we're not going to get Lane Kiffin. I'd love to get Lane Kiffin here. He's not coming. Kyle Whittingham, love to get him. He's not coming. And there's other guys like that. So here's the 5 guys, and in no particular order, that I think if Nebraska gets, I'm considering it a home run. Number 1, this guy's currently a head coach in the NFL, and that's Matt Rule. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't want the NFL coach that ends up getting fired. We had that in Callahan. I get that. And I know there's going to be a lot of that out there. But Matt Rule is not an NFL coach. There's a lot of guys that have gone into the NFL, not worked out, gone back to college and had success. A guy named Nick Saban. Now, I'm not comparing Matt Rule to Nick Saban, but Nick Saban didn't really have the best success with the Miami Dolphins. And Matt Rule is a guy that has spent a majority of his career in college football. He built up Temple to be where they were. He goes to Baylor in the aftermath of Art Briles and builds them back up into contender, going for Big 12 titles. The thing I like about Matt Rule is he's a program builder. This Nebraska program needs to get built back up. It's been pretty tore down lately. They just shuffled through coaches, Pelini to Riley to Frost. They need someone to build it up. And Matt Rule is the guy that I think can do that. One of the things I love about Matt Rule is he's all about player development. I think Nebraska is a player development program. They're not going to go out and get 5 stars and all these elite 4 stars. They're going to have to get some 4 stars and some 3 stars and build them up and develop them. Kind of like what Nebraska used to do back in the day. And Matt Rule has shown that. One of the things I liked about it when he was at Baylor is they went out and recruited based off of potential. They went and got guys that had the requisite speed, the requisite length and height in that, and they developed them. And we've seen this past year in the last draft, the 2022 NFL draft, Baylor put out, 3 defensive backs that went high, a receiver that went high, all because they went and said, hey, here's elite traits Maybe they're not a finished prospect, but let's build them into that. And that's why I really like Matt Rule. Speaking of Baylor, why not get the current Baylor coach, Dave Aranda? He's my second guy that I think would be a home run hire. I think carrying on with a lot of what Matt Rule did at Baylor, a lot of that same type of mindset. Dave Aranda is a highly intelligent defensive mind, and I don't, I'd love to get an offensive head coach. I'm not saying we have to get a defensive guy because we just had an offensive guy. We don't need to get into that. But I think Aranda's a smart guy. I think he's got a scheme that's had a lot of success in the Big Ten when he was at Wisconsin as their defensive coordinator. He's a guy that's willing to go out and find a coordinator. His coordinator now, Jeff Grimes, came from BYU. Dave Aranda was like, hey, let's bring in. He brought in one offensive coordinator when he first got hired there. Said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Quickly realized that wasn't going to work. Shifted focus and got a guy that is working there. And so I think his ability to identify good offensive talent to be on his coaching staff, to go along with his defensive ability, his ability to go out and get players and develop them, I think Dave Aranda would be a home run hire as well. All right, my third guy is going to be Matt Campbell from Iowa State. Here's a guy who has elevated Iowa State. Now, I know they didn't have a good year this past season. They weren't able to build off of the 2020 season that they had, where they were, pushing for that playoff spot. But he's built a culture, and like I said, Nebraska needs a culture. They don't have that culture that they used to have, and I'm not saying they have to go out and bring in, I don't. Nebraska's so long gone in this reactionary thing. Oh, we got to go from offensive guy Bill Callahan to defensive guy Bo Pelini. We got to go from mean Bo Pelini to nice Mike Riley. We got to go from the old guy to the new guy in Scott Frost. But I think Matt Campbell, he's once again, program developer. Building it up, having a good, chemistry, good foundation. And I think here's a guy that's, once again, can develop players, have an offense that can win in the Big Ten, have a defense that can win in the Big Ten. He's developed players. They're going to have a defensive end, probably go in the top 15, top 20 picks in the NFL draft. That wasn't highly recruited. Brock, he had Chubba Purdy's older brother on his team. He's 7th round pick in the NFL draft. Played real well in the preseason. So he's able to get talent in, develop that talent. So that's another reason why I like Matt Campbell. Fourth guy, Luke Fickell. I know, and as soon as I say Luke Fickell, some people are going to say, oh, don't you remember when he was the head coach at Ohio State, Nebraska came back and beat him? Yeah, that was an interim head coach when he just got thrust into that spot because of the firing of Jim Tressel. He wasn't ready for it. He lost Braxton Miller to injury in that game, where they were winning that game at that point. And now he's gone on to Cincinnati, built that program into a college football playoff caliber team, and developed all these elite players. I mean, the number of players that Cincinnati had drafted in the 2022 NFL draft was more than most Big Ten schools. He's developing those guys, identifying them. Once again, hiring elite talent. He hired Marcus Freeman to be his defensive coordinator. Marcus Freeman goes on, now he's the head coach at Notre Dame. This guy knows how to identify talent. He knows how to identify coaching talent and build his program up into an elite program, especially at that level. My fifth guy, and this is the guy I think they're going to end up hiring, and that's Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Once again, former NFL head coach. Once again, we're probably going to hear the Callahan complaints. But I think Bill O'Brien would be a perfect fit at Nebraska. And the thing I loved about Bill O'Brien was when he was at Penn State. Penn State was in the dumps after the Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky situation. And he righted the ship. When Penn State couldn't go to a bowl game, he was able to still attract Christian Hackenberg, the number one quarterback in the nation. He was able to get Adam Brenneman, the number one tight end in the nation, to come to Penn State knowing that they couldn't go to a bowl game, they couldn't compete for a championship. So he can recruit. And the thing I loved about him at Penn State was he knew that he wasn't going to be able to attract the elite talent to Penn State, the elite receiver talent. And so he focused in on tight ends. And they had Adam Brenneman, they had Jesse James, they had a couple other guys. And he would utilize those guys because he said, hey, we can't get elite receivers, but we can go out and get athletic basketball-style tight ends and win with those. And he would use those in his formations. And I remember them coming to Nebraska and giving Nebraska fits during the Pelini era. And I think that fits well with Nebraska. It's going to be tough for Nebraska to go out and recruit 5-star, 4-star receivers that don't have a connection already to Nebraska. And maybe he'll still be able to get them because he coached in the NFL and he coached at Alabama. But I think what we've seen here is look at the talent Nebraska's had at tight end. Austin Allen, Vokalek before he's been injured. We got Fedoni, before he got injured, elite tight end. But utilizing, we can get, there's guys here in this state that are in the area that are athletic, tight end type capabilities, and I think those guys would do well in the Big Ten. Plus, he's a top level offensive mind. He went to the playoffs in the NFL. His undoing in the NFL was that he became the general manager and made some bad decisions. He did well at college. He's been in the Nick Saban rehabilitation program. I think he'd be a home run hire, and like I said, that's who I think they're going to end up taking. Now, a bonus name, this isn't a guy that I consider a home run, but I think I would still be happy if they ended up hiring him, and that's Kansas State's Chris Kleiman, and I think there's some Trev Alberts connections there. He's been a name that's been floated out there as well, and, I'd be okay with it. Yeah, he took over for Craig Bull, kept that North Dakota State train going. He's gone to Kansas State, continued to be, make that team a solid Big 12 team. Heck, they have a good shot to potentially win the conference this year with a former Nebraska quarterback. And so I think I'd be happy. I'd be fine with him. I'd be okay with it. I just think there's other bigger names out there. And I fully understand, too, there's some name. I listed 6 names, and there could be someone that they end up hiring that I didn't even talk about. And I get that. This is my 5 guys, plus 1. My 5 guys that I say would be a home run hire. I think if they went out and got one of these, Nebraska would be in a great spot. But for the first time, Nebraska needs to go out and get the best candidate. Who cares if they have ties to Nebraska? We've tried to do that before with Bo Pelini. We did that with Scott Frost. Just go out and get the best coach. At this point, the only tradition that matters with Nebraska football is winning. And that should be all that matters. I don't care about any of the other things. Just go out and get the best coach. And I think if you get one of those 5 guys, you're going to get one of them.